Yeah, I mean, the difference here is that Native American, tribes are protected and they're given those spaces because we did take a lot of their land, okay? So we gave them nation states that they can, be in charge of their own jurisdiction of, right? That is completely separate than New York City, right, which is its own jurisdiction. It does not need a secondary police force specifically for Muslims.
Welcome to this episode of the American Christian Podcast. This is Pastor Chris and Derek. I'm Derek. He's Chris. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We have a lot to talk about today, but mainly we're going to start off again like we did last week on the Islamification of the United States of America. We talked a lot about what was going on in Dearborn last week. Hamtramck, Michigan has their own issues. New York is having problems. Now Massachusetts is joining the party, the Islam party, and doing some things there. We'll also be talking about Massachusetts again, not only doing the Muslim thing over there and making things real interesting, but they're also now up in the ante on abortion. And then we have some Texas news. We have a surrogate who's fighting for the life of, or fighting for, she won the battle for the life of her surrogate baby, and then is now fighting for custody of it. And then we have we're going to end on a good note today. I have a little win that we have with a little Christian nurse that made a big impact. So to start, though, we got Massachusetts. Massachusetts has now passed a bill that establishes a permanent commission on the status of people who practice Islam. And there's a process there of how those persons are chosen. So the governor appoints 2 people, the Speaker of the House appoints one person is appointed by the President of the Senate, and so on and so forth there until they get to 11 persons that are going to make up this commission. Now, the criteria for picking these is not explicitly listed here, just who gets to appoint them and how many they get to appoint. So there's a lot in this bill, which is House Bill number 3351 out of Massachusetts. But the main thing that this commission is going to do is essentially, it might sound all fun and dandy here, but essentially what this bill is going to do is have some major controls over one particular people group, and that's Muslims. And what I mean by controls is it's going to provide some very strong advantages to, in my opinion, is going to provide some strong advantages in propelling Islamic control over another state in our country, which is going to be Massachusetts. So there I have the second page of the bill there. So you have it all there. You can pause it and read it at your leisure. But 2 points from this bill that we're going to look at here is in this paragraph right here, it says that the commission shall be a resource to the Commonwealth on issues affecting American Muslim communities in the Commonwealth. And down there at point 5, it says to identify and recommend qualified American Muslims for appointive positions at all levels of government, including boards of commissions, as the commission considers necessary and appropriate. So now they're just putting in black and white the ability to headhunt, so to speak, potential Muslim candidates for public office. And we mentioned last week that there are 235 Muslims that hold public office in our country. It also says there in point 7 to advise executive and legislative bodies on the potential effect on American Muslims of proposed legislation as the commission considers necessary and appropriate. Now, it does say to advise executive and legislative bodies on the potential effect, but essentially this commission is going to report back to the Massachusetts legislature and the governor, the executive of that state, any legislation that's going to be going through Congress on if it negatively affects Muslims in the country. Now, there shouldn't be any particular demographic of people that get special mention in any bill in our country. That is providing a level of favoritism towards a particular people group. And Yeah, I mean, what about the Hindu Americans? What about the Taoists? What about the Christians? What about, what about the atheists and the agnostics? Why aren't they getting any special mention on how any proposed legislation might affect them? So you're seeing this special mention and now protections outlined in state legislation and bills that are going to provide special protection for one particular demographic of people. The other part of this bill that I found very alarming was it says here that in line G there, the commission may request from all state agencies whatever information and assistance the commission requires. So the commission may request. Doesn't mean they're going to get it, but it's in writing there. So now, as the line above said that they're going to recommend Muslim Americans to appointed positions within the government, now those appointees have enshrined here the ability to request any information from all state agencies with no mention as to what information is restricted or given access to. So as far as I'm seeing here, it's any information on citizens, any information that's in the governmental archives, anything that all that they want to see, they're going to have that information, and then they can use it for whatever purposes they see fit. And then it also mentions that the commission may accept and solicit funds, including any gifts, donations, grants, or bequests, or any federal funds for any of the proposed. So they're going to get funding federally. They can get gifts, they can get donations, grants, bequests, all kinds of fun stuff here in order to fund this commission to do who knows what. But this commission kind of concerns me here in Massachusetts. We're going to see, I think Massachusetts is going to fall next. That's what I'm seeing, Chris. Massachusetts, it's on its way to following the cities in Michigan, and now the city of New York has fallen. So Massachusetts, I see going full blown the state where it's going to be next.
Yeah, and it's absolutely insane because, this commission here, first of all, like you were saying, has so much unrestricted access to anything, right? And they don't have to provide justification, it doesn't say, right? They can just ask for the information without any justification on why they need that information. It seems like a lot of power for a board that really isn't even necessary. Okay. And I'd be curious to know what kind of caused this, because I don't see any cause that, says, hey, we need to protect the, rights of Muslim Americans, and so it's really it's difficult to even see why this is necessary. But then again, why all of the unrestricted access and the fact that they can receive funding from anything, right? Any gifts, donations. I mean, if somebody wants to funnel in money to this group, there's no force or oversight over, what kind of money can come into this. I mean, it could literally create this giant bloated group of people, 11 people I think it was, with so
Yep,
much power.
11.
And so it's just it shows where we're heading, and I think that this not only is to protect their rights, but really to give them an advantage that isn't, like you said, given to any other group of people at all. I mean, there's not a commission for, like, if Christians were asking for this, it would downright be, there would be the separation of church and state out there, right?
Yeah.
Which, it doesn't necessarily apply, but that was what would be going on. There would be just outbreaks everywhere, but we don't see that. We're not seeing that with this because it's Muslims, and so it's just why again, with all of the different things that are going on, I always have to ask myself, why are they doing it? Because there has to be some sort of hidden agenda, and we're going to see that Massachusetts is ground zero for all of this woke ideology that's coming through.
Yeah, and I think the most alarming thing that, and I mentioned it, was we've seen this last week. We talked about Dearborn. We're going to mention them again tonight in this episode. I mentioned Hamtramck was also used to be a big Polish town. Biggest Polish festival in the country was held in Hamtramck, Michigan. First Muslim majority city council in Hamtramck. Dearborn's getting all the press. New York's getting all the press. Now Massachusetts is doing their thing, but Hamtramck has kind of set the stage to launch this stuff forward in the past years. But now we're actually seeing something being enshrined at the state level. So New York City is isolated. Dearborn is a city. Hamtramck is a city. We're seeing pockets of these places, of this stuff popping up across the country. 235 Muslims being in public office, in positions of public office. But this is a state bill. So now this has escalated to now a state. Massachusetts will become the first state to institute this. And now that this stuff's been enshrined, watch how fast appointees are put in positions, schools, all that kind of stuff we talked about last week with what we played that video from the imam that talks about getting the mayor, getting on the school board, now Massachusetts just opening the door for all that stuff that he was saying to become reality. So it's escalating, and we're going to talk about later with Dearborn. With Jake Lang, we talked about him last week, is heading to Dearborn on a Tuesday on the 18th to speak to the city council. But we're seeing some pushback. We're seeing Christian marches. Now we've seen that, I think, in Dearborn. We saw a group of Christians Chicago. There was a group of Christians that were marching, big group. In the rain and the bad weather, they were out there marching just like the Muslims in Dearborn were doing. So we're seeing response. We're seeing a Christian response. Keep it up. Keep up the response. That's what we need to do. And wave the flag of Christ across the country. And what we don't see when these Christians are marching through the streets is we don't see gentlemen getting stoned and chased and beaten in front of police officers. We're just not seeing that. So Massachusetts, this is going to be bad news. And unfortunately unfortunately, what we're seeing now in New York with Mamdani, New York has now instituted a Muslim, it's called the Muslim Community Patrol has been instituted in New York. And OAN did a quick little snippet on this. So we're going to listen to see how OAN reports this, and we're going to talk about it.
New Yorkers say they're shocked after seeing Muslim patrol cars roaming their neighborhoods like police squads. These Muslim community patrols just began operating in Brooklyn this year, and according to the Council on American Islamic Relations, they are the first of their kind in the United States. The patrols sprang up as an apparent response to some 14 biased incidents against New York Muslims in 2017. Actually, a rather low number, considering there's over 8.6 million people living in the city. According to the group's vice president, Noor Rabah, the group currently has 30 members, but plans on rapidly expanding to cover the entire city. He describes the Muslim patrols like a neighborhood watch, but on steroids, with members dressed like police officers and driving cars identical to police squad cars. Residents say they're uncomfortable with the patrols, which they describe as being similar to Sharia police. Others have raised doubts about the purpose of the patrols, saying New York's police department is already very diverse, and their only job is to patrol the city streets and protect people from harassment or crime.
Okay, so that is a good point right there. The NYPD is there to do exactly what this MCP or MCPS, Muslim Community Patrol and Services, is doing. So from sahlah.net, so this is a Muslim's website, it talks about what the importance of the Muslim Community Patrol Services are and what their goals are for these patrols. One is to protect Muslims in the New York community. Is to attempt to protect all the Muslims in the New York community through guiding newly arrived individuals to the rules of the community, the laws of the country. Okay, so it's directly a group directly that's going to be directly protecting Muslims in New York. Number two, to defend the Muslim cause. Defends the Muslim cause through representing Islam and its core in a community in which Islamophobia rates are higher than usual. So Islamophobia is kind of a silly word. Phobia means to fear. I'm not necessarily, I'm concerned because their core faith is antithetical to the constitutional republic that we have in our country. Number 3, a meeting point for many Muslims. And number 4, contributes to the whole of New York community. And number 5, provides Muslims with many services. So I find that they actually contradict themselves in this list of goals. Number 1 was to protect Muslims in New York community. Number 5, provide Muslims with many services. Number 4, contributes to the whole of New York community. It also says rather than contributing to Muslim community within New York only, they offer the authorities their assistance in issues related to the entirety of New York community. But that's not true, because I just mentioned 2 of the goals were to provide Muslims with services, defend the Muslim cause, and to protect Muslims in New York community. So they pepper this in. This like, oh, no. We're also going to be doing the whole of New York City. Well, that's what the NYPD is there for. There's no reason for this MCPS to even exist. We don't have a Christian patrol service. We don't have a Buddhist patrol service to protect the Buddhists in the country. You don't have a Jewish patrol service. You might have, only thing that we've ever seen, Chris, is on Indian land, on reservations. They do have native police and their own policing that takes place on those reservations. Is the only thing that I've ever seen that's any similar to this, but they don't operate within the jurisdiction of a large New York City or Chicago or something like that. They're in their own area, and they're policing their own people, kind of a thing. So I don't necessarily see the necessity of this, other than another step in the control and small institutions in order to small organizations in order to institute Muslim and Sharia policies across the country.
Yeah, I mean, the difference here is that Native American, tribes are protected and they're given those spaces because we did take a lot of their land, okay? So we gave them nation states that they can, be in charge of their own jurisdiction of, right? That is completely separate than New York City, right? Which is its own jurisdiction. It does not need a secondary police force specifically for Muslims. And the other thing here is that we've seen that this happens. This is the first time it's happened here in the U.S., but it has happened in, like England and stuff like that. And these police forces have gone as far to institute the Sharia law. Like they've, talked about how like this is a Muslim area, so you can't drink alcohol here. This is a Muslim area, so you're, talking to women, your skirts are too short. This is the start to all of that starting here in America. And don't get me, like, this Islamophobia, this frustrates me because they just elected the first, Muslim mayor in New York City. So you can't tell me that they're afraid of Muslims there in New York City. They've just elected him to be leader over their city, over the biggest city in the United States. So it's frustrating because we're starting to see how they're slowly, again, like you said, instituting their way in little by little, and they're eventually going to try to take over and institute Sharia law in, again, the biggest city in the U.S.
It's not a religion of assimilation. It's not a religion of anything other than conquest. You can look up maps of the Muslim conquest or the spread of Islam across Europe and into North America, and you're going to see it rapidly spreading. I mean, they're not it's a religion of conquest. So Christianity is a religion of evangelizing and missionary work. Christianity does not go into a country and attempt to change the country from within. We have so many missionaries in China who are trying to reach people for Christ, but they're not trying to change the government. They're just trying to win people's hearts. So to say Christianity, we see how people like to paint a picture against Christians and against other Americans and say Islamophobic and all these different things. The problem is that religion is a religion of conquest through violence, not peace. And we're gonna play a video of this week in the Islamification of America and how peaceful and how they're not trying to take over the country, how that's going. But we have a compilation of teachers and imams in the United States, and I think there's one even in there from across the sea in kind of the Norwegian area or something like that, maybe Sweden or something like that. But most of these people that I'm about to play, these are teachers that are Islamic teachers in the United States. And if you're listening to this podcast on Spotify or Apple, you're not going to understand what they're saying, because much of this is, there's going to be a lot of this in Arabic, and you're going to need the subtitles to see what they're saying. So flip over to Rumble, flip over to YouTube just to watch this part if you're joining us on audio, just so you can see the words of what's being said in these videos. And it's a few minutes long, but I think it's important that we understand what they're teaching within their own mosques and in their own community centers to Muslims in the United States.
ونقدم الأرواح دون تواني وسنضرب الأعناق عن أجسادهم ونحرر الأقصى الحزين العاري.
Okay, so that one said, we will chop off their heads and we will liberate the sorrowful and exalted Al-Aqsa Mosque. The Al-Aqsa Mosque is the mosque that is in Jerusalem, for those of you that don't know. But this young woman on the far left there is the one with the microphone. And she's reading a paper, which no doubtedly a man gave her to read, or else. We will chop off their heads and we will liberate the sorrowful and exalted Al-Aqsa Mosque. We will submit them to, what was that? We're going to go back. We will lead the armies of Allah and we will subject them to eternal torture. This is from 2019, that video.
Uncivilized. Do not be tricked and deceived by their technology. Do not be tricked and deceived by their philosophies and their westernizations and their ideas. At the end of the day, they are still backwards. Allah has sent us to these nations to civilize them. That's why Allah has sent us, to civilize these people. Yet the media makes us look the barbaric ones. The reason they don't want you to be successful is because they're jealous of what you have. The Christians, jealous of what you have. Their nations, their religions are dying. So what they had to do, they had to change their religion. You don't believe me? We went to churches, and they're now having the LGBT flags over there. A'udhu billah. Imagine, your business, your religion is dying so much that the only thing that you could do is go and get some help from the LGBT. That's just the condition you've become in. Because their religion is dying. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent us into the nations to guide these people.
You will annihilate them. Ya Rahman Rahimin, you annihilated. And you destroyed the likes of Ad and Thamud and Fir'aun. These are the Fir'auns and the Ad and Thamud of today. Ya Rahman Rahimin, we ask you, Ya Allah, destroy them. Destroy them, Allah. Take them off the service of this earth. Ya Rahman Rahimin, Ya Akram al-Akramin.
على القوم الكافرين اللهم انصر الإسلام وأعز المسلمين.
It said, give us victory over the disbelieving people and humiliate polytheism and the polytheists. So far we've seen a lot of violence, prayers of that, prayers of destruction and annihilation of people that aren't Muslim. So very, very peaceful so far. Let's keep watching.
اللهم انصر عبادك الموحدين اللهم انصرهم على القوم المجرم أحصهم عددا اللهم قتلهم
Slay them one by one and spare not one of them.
بددا
Grant their jihadist victory. Annihilate the Jews and the Christians and their helpers. The Jews and their helpers. Kill them one by one. Do not spare a single one of them. Annihilate the Crusaders.
Allahumma destroy all the enemies of Islam. Allahumma destroy all the enemies of Islam. May Allah destroy them completely and show in them, show in us the great signs of Allah in their utter destruction, annihilation, humiliation.
عليك بالأمريكان ومن والاهم
Destroy the Americans and their supporters. Kill them all without leaving a single one. Kill them one by one. Count them and kill them one by one, and do not leave even one of them. So, very peaceful. Very, very, very peaceful leaders there talking to their people. And much of that is in the United States, if not most of that was in the United States. I think there was one, I was mistaken. I think it was in Finland. It said Finn Arab or something like that. I think that's over in Finland. But this is what they're teaching when they go to these other countries. They're opening mosques, they're opening learning centers. And you heard the one teacher talking about how Americans are uncivilized and that they were sent there to civilize them. Before that, what I cut out is he was saying that we were uncivilized because we used toilet paper. That's the main reason that he used to support how we're uncivilized, when I believe the Quran teaches them a little bit different method of cleaning themselves, which I won't go into detail on. But this is what they're teaching to American Muslims, or Muslims in America, how to think regarding the country that they're living in. How do you think regarding the other Americans that are living among them? It's not peaceful. It is the Islamification of America. They've already taken over cities in our country. They're injecting themselves into many of the governmental bodies in our country. People like Jake Lang and others are not wrong in what they're saying. This is dangerous to have, because people want a melting pot in the United States. Well, Islam does not believe in a melting pot. They believe in Islam and Islam only. And if you are not Muslim, then you are an infidel and you have to be removed from service of the earth, as that one guy said. This is not a peaceful religion, and they are definitely working to take over the United States of America.
Yeah, if they were peaceful, there wouldn't be all that killing that they've been talking about. Kill them one by one. I heard that. I mean, that was like multiple times. That's like one of their things. And annihilate the Jews and the Christians. They want to see us die. That's what they want. And that one guy, it's unfortunate because, if you're from the outside looking in, you do see some of these churches that are, going outside of scripture and establishing, their ideals of, bringing in the LGBTQ community and saying that it's okay. So I can see where it does look like Christianity is falling, but we knew that this was going to be the case. I mean, Paul writes to Timothy that there is going to be a time where teachers are going to teach what their itching ears want to hear. So we shouldn't be surprised by that, but that shouldn't, make us concerned that Christianity is on any sort of, end here. And the thing is that God is going to prevail in the end, right? So it might look like, they're winning, just like it looked like Babylon was winning, right? Until it wasn't, until,
Right.
The Assyrians came along. And so, God is allowing people to reject him, right? To see who is going to be faithful to him through this time. And so we as Christians, we have to, again, get rooted in scripture. If you're going to one of these churches, you've got to make sure that you get out of there and get to a church that actually teaches the Bible. So, but yeah, Islam, again, they're coming here and they don't want to assimilate. They want to kill. That they want a complete annihilation and to take over this country. And unfortunately, if we don't step up, we're going to continue to let it happen.
Yeah, and we saw in that memorandum from 1991 that it was a civilized jihad. So it's going to start that way. So, Christian, you got to understand that it's going to be subtle. It's going to be slow. It's going to seem civilized at first. But once things are put in place and all the chess pieces are where they need to be, that's when things were going to change very rapidly. We've already seen Mayor Hamoud in Dearborn speak very nasty to some of the non-Muslim citizens of that city. So we see where it's going. It's very slowly, but it's going that direction. And no, that guy is completely wrong. We have not changed the Christian faith. People have molested and manipulated it, but the faith has not changed. Yes. Christianity has not changed. Christianity was always one of the things that we've talked about on this podcast is a lot of progressive Christianity and the dangers of that. So Orthodox Christianity has not changed. The Bible has not changed. God has not changed. God is immutable. Christ has not changed. He's immutable. We serve an unchanging God. His word doesn't change except for when we decide to change it. There are different translations that have no checks or balances. I'm looking at you, Passion Translation. There's a lot of issues with that. If you're listening to this and you're going, what's the problem with the Passion Translation? Just look it up. There's no oversight on the translation and anything that is being put together, and it's actually not finished. So just look that up. You're going to find a lot of bad things about that Bible, or that version of what he's calling the Bible. But yeah, Christianity has not changed. God has not changed. We can rest in the confidence that God has not changed. So he's using tactics to keep those people in line and to try to see us as the enemy. And not only are the teachers showing or speaking that, which I expect. I mean, this has been going on for over 1,000 years, this jihad against the non-Muslim world. And now all of a sudden we're like, well, yeah, now they're just all of a sudden going to be peaceful. No, that's not the case. This is a very smart tactic that they're doing. But the teachers aren't the only ones that are giving this message. We now have law enforcement doing it. We have the sheriff of Dearborn giving a public announcement to the citizens of Dearborn to stay home, not because he's afraid that the citizens of Dearborn are going to cause a problem, but because those scary Christians coming to town are going to cause all kinds of problems. So let's hear the sheriff of Dearborn.
I'm Chief Isa Shaheen, and we're aware that individuals and groups from outside our community may come to the Dearborn City Council meeting on Tuesday, August 18th. We've been monitoring the situation closely and coordinating with our state and federal partners. We have a plan in place, and you'll see an enhanced presence of police officers. But here's my direct ask of our residents. Please stay home. These groups that are coming here are coming for one reason, and that's to provoke a reaction and generate attention. If nobody shows up to react, they have nothing. The most powerful thing that this community can do is refuse to give them an audience. If you have business before council, you're welcome, and you'll be safe. We'll make sure of it. But if you're thinking about coming down just to confront these people, don't. That's exactly what they want, and it puts you at risk. Let our officers do their job. Don't let a handful of hateful outsiders define who we are. Dearborn is stronger than this.
Right there. Don't let a group of hateful outsiders. The sheriff of Dearborn is speaking directly to the Muslim community in Dearborn, saying that these hateful outsiders are coming to town. He's already identified anybody that's not Muslim that doesn't live in Dearborn coming in as a hateful outsider. It puts the citizens of Dearborn at risk of what? Being evangelized? Seeing people march through the street? Seeing a crowd of people speaking out against their religion and their prophet? There's a lot of things that he said in there that are just flat out propaganda. And he said they're coming for one reason and one reason only, to provoke a reaction. That is not why they're coming. They're coming to speak against your crazy mayor, the crazy city council, all the people that are coming into town, marching through the streets without a single American flag, wearing all black, praying to Allah, and wanting to institute Sharia law and change our country from within. That's why they're coming, to protest that. They're not coming to get you to react. That's not at all what they're coming. They're probably going to react, Chris. They can't help themselves. They're going to come out. Christians are coming to town. There's diehard fundamentalists that are going to be there that can't help themselves. They got to go confront the Christians, because the people of the book have to be confronted and taken care of. So we're going to get videos of reactions. His message is falling on deaf ears. They're not going to stay home. but he's wrong in why they're coming. They're not coming to provoke a reaction. They're coming to protest what's happening to our country, starting in one of our cities, which is Dearborn, Michigan.
Yeah, and you know, it's frustrating because they went through the streets with this giant parade that, where they're yelling and screaming and trying to, in my, eyes, establish dominance in a way. And they've already established dominance in Dearborn and in Hamtramck. But my point being is that if we come in and we try to have a march or a protest, well, now we're just the bad guys here, and it's like you guys have done us doing the same thing doesn't make us bad guys in this process. Like you said, well, they're not going there to provoke, they're going there to bring attention to what is going on, because there are probably, like I was talking about, small town America who doesn't even understand the essence of what is going on here in Dearborn. Like they've never even come anywhere close to understand, to driving through a city where the entire city looks like you've come into the Middle East. And so we're trying to bring attention to it, and if we don't start here, well, it's going to continue to spread like a parasite, and try to take over and essentially kill the host, kill our nation, right? To try to take over, and so we've got to push back, and that's what they're going there for, is to bring attention to what's going on, push back a little bit, but it's not to invoke uh uh what's the word, an attack or something like that. But you're right, they're going to there is going to probably be a clash on the 18th, this Tuesday, because they can't help themselves from showing up and wanting to stone, because this is the same guy, Jake Lang, who's going to be there, along with, I believe, Pastor Lorenzo Sewell, and we looked at maybe the bikers also joining from Sturgis, and so but yeah, they're going to go there and they're going to try to bring about their own justice, and it could get pretty bad. I hope not, but it might.
Yeah, the only thing that I've seen as far as confirming that the Sturgis bikers are coming is just some different Facebook profiles have been posting that. It's going to be cool if they do. I really hope that they do. I hope that we have some of these good old boy Americans that are going to show up and kind of help support and make that presence felt. This is having the sheer numbers of Americans saying, no, we don't like this. We're not having this. Will be nice. So, but yeah, Jake Lang's going to be there, and I know there's a large Christian group that's going to be showing up now that they moved it to the Henry Ford Bicentennial Library from the City Council chambers. They moved it there because they're expecting, I guess, a larger crowd, which I hope they get. But like you said, it's going to be a large crowd of Christians. Jake Lang's going to show up. I'm sure he's going to have people surrounding him for protection and help and support. But there's going to be something's going to pop off on Tuesday. It's going to happen. And we're going to keep our ears to that and probably be talking about that next week, and because something's going to happen, and we're going to have to talk about it, and navigate through the lies that are going to be spread against the Christian groups that are showing up regarding anything that may or may not happen. So I'm sure there's going to be propaganda spun around these groups, but yeah, the only people provoking a reaction are going to be them. So, but yeah, this is something that we're going to have to keep an eye on. This Islamification of America is not something we can let go of. Something that we're going to keep talking about. People are going to say, "Oh, you guys are talking about that again." It's important. We're going to lose our country. It's going to happen, and it's going to happen city by city and now state by state, as we've seen in Massachusetts. But Massachusetts is not only going full blown Islamification. They have now, as we shift gears to a different issue going on in Massachusetts, they have completely lifted the restrictions on their abortion law. So we have Massachusetts Bill 5595 was signed into law. Many of you probably saw the video of governor signing that bill with the women all around it behind her, clapping like seals that they can now abort their babies up to birth without the severe post 24-week restrictions that were in the original bill. So the Massachusetts bill, it's very short. It's not very long at all. This is page 1 of 2, and page 2 is only in like maybe a half page, but it specifically mentions section 12N and 12P of the 112th chapter of the general laws of Massachusetts. And what they've done is they completely stricken out lines 1 through 9 of section 12N. And they replaced those with the language, an abortion may be performed by a physician based upon the professional judgment of the physician. So they struck all that language out and just added that sentence in. Now you might wonder, what does the original language of 12N say? Well, here's 12N right here on your screen right now. And 12N says, if a pregnancy has existed for 24 weeks or more, no abortion may be performed except by a physician, and only if in the best medical judgment of the physician it is 1, 2, 3, and they list a bunch of stuff. So now they've struck everything except for, it says, if a pregnancy has existed for 24 weeks or more, it may be performed by, and we'll go back so you can see the exact language again, it may be performed by a physician based upon the professional judgment of the physician. All those restrictions have been completely stricken from the bill. No more restrictions. It's just if you want to do it. Now they also mentioned section 12P. So if we go down here to page 2 of the bill, it mentions section 12P. Section 12P of said chapter 112 as appearing in the 2024 official edition is hereby amended by striking out the second paragraph. Well, what does section 12P say? Section 12P says, except in an emergency requiring immediate action, an abortion shall not be performed under section 12M or 12N unless the written informed consent of the proper person has been obtained as set forth in section 12R. That's paragraph 1. The next paragraph has been stricken from this section. Except in an emergency requiring immediate action, an abortion shall not be performed under section 12N unless performed in a hospital duly authorized to provide facilities for obstetrical services. That paragraph has been completely stricken from that. So all you need is consent. That's all they left in section 12P, is written informed consent. Now, in the state of Massachusetts, the 24 weeks has always been there, Chris. 24 weeks has not been stricken out of the bill. It just lifted all the restrictions. So in essence, they struck the 24 weeks out of the bill because after 24 weeks, there's no restrictions anyway. So now they're making, again, we're getting into the whole abortion arguments about, well, if it's a life of the mother, life, and certain issues, rape, incest, and all of the same normal arguments that they keep coming up. And now and what has the left been using? That abortion is healthcare. And if you watch the governor's press release, she had a big sign right on her podium that said abortion is healthcare. It is not healthcare. It is murder. It is the destruction of a life in the womb. Plain and simple. And any Christians listening to this that don't believe in that, you need to go back and study your Bible some more. Children are an inheritance of the Lord. We are not to shed we're not to shed innocent blood. That's something that God sees as an abomination. It's all over your Bible. It doesn't specifically use the word abortion. No, it doesn't. But a lot of things that we teach in our faith, from the pulpit and from the classroom or however you're learning the Bible, things are implied. We can pull things, we can exegete things from the scriptures and apply them to issues of today and see how God would feel about it. Homosexuality is one, but that one's even more explicit. Paul talks about it in Romans chapter 1. It's explicitly talked about. Abortion is not explicitly mentioned, but it's implied through proper exegesis, using hermeneutics and properly studying our scriptures. We can find that God finds it abominable. You don't have to ignore the fact. But abortion is not healthcare. And when it comes to matters of pregnancy complications, what are some of the procedures that we can use for saving the life of that baby? There's quite a few things that we can do. There's assisted vaginal birth with forceps that you can use. Emergency cesareans can be performed. labor induction with close monitoring can be performed. We've had advancements in childbirth that have provided us with the ability to save the life of a baby, save the life of the mother through different processes and procedures. We have NICUs that help to sustain and provide healthcare for premature babies and other issues that babies may be born with, so that they can then go home rehabilitated from whatever birth issues that they were having at the hospital. We have so many things in place that we do not have to consistently resort to killing the baby. Abortion is one thing and one thing only. It's done out of the idea of inconvenience. That's it. It's really it, Chris. It's inconvenience.
Well, and the frustrating part about this is when we were voting a couple years ago on Proposition 3, the idea was, oh, that's not really what it's for. It's for this early stuff and, to protect this stuff. Well, now, right, they are outright saying, no, it is for these last, 16 weeks of pregnancy all the way up through that last trimester, right? Because we were up to 24 weeks. Like, there was not a reasonable justification if you get to 24 weeks to go any further than that, right? Because at that point, you're going to see most of the concerns if we're going to play into their idea, right? By then you've had all your genetic testing and stuff like that. But no, the reason that they expanded this was literally so that they could do it up until birth. And it's like when Roe v. Wade was overturned, we were told, no, this is just to protect, abortion. And no, it's literally to take it all the way up until birth. And it's so frustrating because now they join 10 other states that allow this all the way up until birth: Alaska, Colorado, Maryland, Michigan, Minnesota, New Jersey, New Mexico, Oregon, and Vermont. And you and I, we both know that abortion is murder, right? But it's just they are outright saying that it doesn't matter. It doesn't. There is no date of when a baby becomes a baby in their eyes. A baby is a baby until it exits the vagina, and it's just like, wow.
Yeah, and it's kind of silly because when you and I have probably seen a lot of the conversations that we see apologists make when they're talking to young people or people on the street or anything like that, and they ask, if it's not a baby, what is it? And they always say a clump of cells, a fetus. They use the same vernacular that they always use for these, to call it anything other than a baby. If it's not a human baby, what is it? Answer that question. Has any human, have any two human beings come together and conceived and given and had and the mother giving birth to anything other than a human being in the history of mankind? It's never happened. You'll never have it happen because human beings give birth to human beings. So if it's not a human being, what is it? And it's a human being at conception. And we know that because we have advancements in science that can see the developmental process of a conceived baby from the moment the egg is fertilized. We can see life take form. We have seen it. It's been presented to us through the advancements of medical technology and things like that. We can actually see the human baby develop from conception. So it is the stuffing out of a life, plain and simple. There's no other argument to that, really. And as for Christians, one of the things that you and I, Chris, are trying to do here is trying to the transforming of our minds as Christians in America. And for those Christians that vote left or are on the fence, this should be a big issue for you. It really should be. I mean, we just saw a group of women standing behind the governor of Massachusetts celebrating essentially infanticide. No, it's not post-birth, but it's really close. You're talking about a fully developed baby ready for birth, and you're going to kill it. If it's not a human being, what is it? And we do understand the arguments that, we've seen Charlie Kirk make and other Christian apologists make regarding why are there states that if you kill a pregnant woman, are you charged with a double homicide? They recognize it through the law that it's a human, that you've killed another human being. But abortion is not considered killing a human being. It's illogical. It's hypocritical. And it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So for those Christians that are on the fence, for those that keep voting left, this is one of those big issues that you have to take to heart and start trying to understand what the scriptures say. Provide proper exegesis. I know that's a weird word for people that don't know what it means, but it's reading scripture and comparing it, scripture with scripture, verse to verse within the chapter within the book within the Testament, the Testament within the whole context of the Bible, just studying everything out, and God will show you why this is sinful and abominable in his eyes. And we need to take that seriously. But this is not a bill put in place to help with issues of health for the mother. And some of the arguments they're going to do is like ectopic pregnancies. An ectopic pregnancy, I can't say the word right now for some reason, but it's when the egg doesn't actually fertilize or implant in the uterus. It implants usually in the fallopian tubes or something like that. It's not a viable pregnancy. It cannot proceed through the human reproductive process. It just can't. So at that point, if that egg continues to progress and a baby begins to grow and develop, it's going to provide major rupturing and more than likely death to the mother. Well, at that point, it technically under definition would be considered maybe an abortion, but it's a life-saving operation to save the life of a mother for a pregnancy that is 100% not viable. But as we advance, there might be ways of moving that egg down, doing different things. I'm hoping that there's people looking into these type of pregnancies that women have to go deal with and don't have a normal pregnancy. I'm hoping that there's people out there that are figuring out ways of how can we get around this and actually provide a normal pregnancy for the mother. But those are very small minority issues that they constantly throw at us in order to catch us into saying no, abortion is okay. But it's not. It simply isn't. This isn't a viable pregnancy. A lot of these things are not. Rape and incest account for less than 1% of all abortions performed. Okay, so I've seen people say, okay, we'll give you rape and incest, but can we at least have the 99% of other pregnancies can't be aborted? And they won't even concede to that. No, we have to have all or nothing because it's a doctrine to them. It's 100% a doctrine to them.
Well, and the other thing here is that, like you were saying, it's such a small amount of these additional things like ectopic pregnancy or, rape or incest, right? The real reason why abortion is here is because it's an inconvenience, right? And they're trying to rid themselves of that inconvenience. The problem is that to rid yourself of the inconvenience is to start before, to not do what creates a child. Okay. Nobody has sex and they're surprised. Oh no, I'm pregnant. How did this happen? No, you know what you're doing, and that is where the consent comes in, right? You have consented to this pregnancy by you engaging in the action. But again, the other thing here is that two little statistics that I thought were important. At 21 to 22 weeks, a pregnancy you can have the baby, and because of the technology that we have, that baby can survive. So what we're saying here is that, that 24 weeks, though, when you're, having an abortion, those babies could live. And then here's the other thing. After 25 weeks, right, of pregnancy, there is a more than 70% survival rate, which means that we are killing human beings that have a 70% chance of survival by what that bill just signed. It's absolutely outrageous. And It just gets me frustrated and fired up every time that I think about how many children are being killed as a result of what we call inconveniences, because that's a majority, like 99% of the abortions that are.
And there was a woman that I can't remember her name right now. If I can find it, I will mention her. But she was speaking at a school or some convention center or something like that, and there's a young woman there who was a supporter of abortion, and she asked a young woman, and this woman, the woman that was speaking, was supposed to be aborted when she was a baby. She survived a botched abortion. So she asked a young girl, do I deserve to die because I'm not supposed to be here? And the girl was confused by the question, but it's a very important question. If I was supposed to be aborted, then you're saying that I deserve to die. I'm not supposed to be here because my mother wanted to have me aborted. And then the girl did say, well, no, you're a person with feelings and you have a purpose and you have all these things. Okay, why is she at 40 or 35 or 45 or whatever age she is, why is she now a valuable person in society, but when she was a baby conceived in the womb, she had no value? So it's just an illogical ideology that they constantly latch onto. And hopefully we see some more wins like this next story. We had a surrogate mother. She's from Alaska, and she agreed to a surrogacy agreement with biological parents, carried the baby, and now the baby was diagnosed with hypoplastic left heart syndrome. So hypoplastic left heart syndrome, according to the Mayo Clinic, it's a rare heart condition that a child is born with. It's a congenital heart defect. It's when the left side of the heart doesn't develop fully and it is too small, so it can't pump blood well. So the right side has to compensate and pump blood to the lungs and to the rest of the body. So it is a very serious heart condition that babies are born with. It is very treatable though through surgery and potentially needing a heart transplant. You can have difficulty breathing, poor feeding habits, poor diet, weak pulse, changes in skin or nail color. So there's a lot of issues that can come with this congenital heart issue, but with proper treatment, according to again Mayo, many babies with hypoplastic left heart syndrome survive. The biological parents executed the abortion language in the surrogacy agreement and ordered the mother, the surrogate, to abort the baby. Well, this woman, her name is McKenna West, refused to abort the baby, which she had named Gabriel, and she fled to Texas and was protected in Texas to then give birth to baby Gabriel. Now there's a big legal battle going on. The biological parents have gained custody of baby Gabriel, but they have not agreed to the life-saving treatment that baby Gabriel needs. So the surrogate, McKenna is now fighting for custody of baby Gabriel. So this is it's a big legal thing going on. I'm hoping McKenna can come out of this on top. That would be great. She is a single mother of 2 already. So she would then be a single mother of 3 if she wins this custody battle. The only issue that she's going to have is that she violated her surrogacy agreement. Now, you and I, Chris, would say abortion, we're not going to agree with it in any way whatsoever. But a contract is a contract. Sadly enough, in the court of law, that's how it's going to be viewed. So she was ordered by the biological parents to abort through the surrogacy agreement, but then she fled to Texas where they have different laws. So it's gonna be a very interesting legal battle going on here that I'm very interested to see how this plays out with McKenna and with these biological parents.
Okay, well, here's the thing to consider. Okay, me and you can sign a contract, right? Maybe you hire me as your hitman, right? The problem is that murder is illegal. So that contract is null and void. And so she was very, maybe because she went there because they had a heart, a pediatric heart, hospital there for, but technically in Texas, it is illegal to have an abortion. And therefore I'm assuming that part of the contract can no longer be legal considering the circumstances in which she is in. I'm hoping that that's how that plays out, because that's what makes sense to me. I am not a legal scholar, so please don't quote me on that. But again, I think that if you sign a contract and the contract has some sort of illegal statement in there, it's null and void in the eyes of the law. And so I hope that she gets custody of the child. I don't necessarily know how that's going to play out. But what's interesting is that the surrogate, or not the surrogate, sorry, the family, the two biological parents have almost played themselves to be victims in this scenario. They said they don't like how much publicity that this is getting. Well, you're not the victim in this scenario. Your baby Gabriel, who you are trying to murder, is the victim in this scenario. In fact, like you said, they haven't said that they're going to provide that necessary care to keep him alive, which in my mind is murder in a way. I mean, you're not giving him the necessities that will provide him with life. That, and there's statistics here that you have people or children born with this have a 75% chance of making it to age 5, and if Gabriel makes it to age 1, he has a 90% chance of making to 18. Okay, so the point here is that this is something that can be treated, and a majority of people come out, okay, yes, there's probably going to be some, health things that we have to, deal with the rest of his life. But he is a life, and he is valuable nonetheless.
Mhm.
And so I really hope that McKenna is some way able to get custody, even if it's the publicity that brings it to the attention. And this family feels like, well, they don't want to bring more attention to themselves. If that's what it takes for McKenna to get custody, then we need to continue talking about it. It needs to continue to be something that everybody is paying attention to, and we'll see. It'll be very cool to if she wins, and it'll be a testament to, I think, the rights that a surrogate should have as the mother of this child. I mean, she spent 9 months, nurturing this baby inside her body, and so she cares because she's created this she has this maternal instinct of the baby that she has now birthed.
Here's the big takeaway from this whole story, folks. This is how much the left worships at the altar of child sacrifice. The biological parents had a lot of options that they could have done. They could have said, we paid you to be a surrogate. The money that you received to be a surrogate, we don't want the baby. It's got health problems. We don't want to deal with that. We don't want to do anything. It's a terrible thing for biological parents to say, but it's an option they had. We want the money back for surrogacy. You can keep the baby. We don't want to have anything to do with that. They chose.
And McKenna said she would.
Right. But they chose the path of child sacrifice, regardless of the fact that they would have no responsibility to Gabriel once he was born. Because as you just said, McKenna said, I'll keep him. I'll take care of him. I'll do what's necessary so that he can live. And they said, no, kill him. This is how much the left worships at the altar of child sacrifice. You had the option and you had an out for that baby to live and for someone else to take care of him and love him. And they still chose the path of forceful abortion. So again, the contrast is real for the Christian in this country to see how disgusting that ideology is. This has nothing to do, literally nothing to do with those biological parents having to take on an added medical expense or a burden of any kind, because they had the out. They didn't have to keep him. There was someone already waiting in the wings, ready to love him, and that was this McKenna who was carrying him. And they still chose murder, where she felt she had to flee to Texas in order to protect this baby. And thank goodness for the Attorney General in Texas intervening and protecting her down in the state until she could give birth. And now Gabriel's here. Hopefully he's receiving the care that he needs. And now we're going on to a battle. And I really hope that, I hate to say this, but I really hope that God intervenes here and puts that baby with the person that wants to love him for who he was, how he's born, and who that kid's going to be. And like you said, his chances of survival to 18 are exponentially high as long as all the care is taken care of during the first year of life. This kid he's going to have a life. He's going to get a chance to live and love and play and learn and all these wonderful things that we get to do as human beings that the biological parents were going to snuff out when they had the out to not have to abort him. This is how much they worship that ideology.
And what's sad is that when Gabriel turns 18, I hope he's not living with those parents, because he is going to see this, and I can only imagine looking and saying, "You guys didn't want me," it's going to absolutely be detrimental.
The care I needed.
Yes, yeah, it's going to be detrimental. Once he grows up and he begins to learn about this situation, I hope that he is in the care of McKenna or somebody else. Because this is going to be something that's going to weigh on him, his entire life.
Yeah. So McKenna West, we applaud you here on the American Christian Podcast. Stand firm in the faith. Stand firm in battling for this little boy. This is a sad but also wonderful story at the same time. It's a bittersweet thing that we've had to see going on. He fought hard for his life, and now he's here. So, that's a big win, and that's something to be proud of. So we want to end on another win, something that doesn't have any issues really behind it, which is another down in Texas. We have Texas Children's Hospital, and we have a Christian nurse. Her name is Vanessa Savage or Sivage. Sorry if we're mispronouncing your name. We can't we can't we're trying our best. But she revealed a lot of issues happening down in Texas Children's Hospital. There's a lot of fraud going on within the hospital system, and she was a whistleblower, and she revealed all of this information. And now the Texas Children's Hospital has to provide for the first detransitioner clinic in the United States. This is a huge deal for her. And this is actually how it was worded in the final settlement here. It said that under the settlement agreement, Texas Children's Hospital, TCH, must open the clinic by the end of October. So that has to happen very quickly. This is an expedited opening. Pay $10 million in penalties to resolve Medicaid fraud claims, and fire 5 physicians who carried out sex rejecting procedures in violation of Texas law, according to this Wednesday press release from Burke Law Group. The clinic is slated to provide free treatment for patients up to 21 who underwent trans procedures at Texas Children's Hospital or elsewhere and need help healing from fertility-related injuries, endocrine system damage, psychiatric issues, and other long-term health damage. The clinic services must be provided at no charge to patients for a minimum of 5 years. And they also must commit to institutional reforms that include training healthcare professionals on the dangers of sex rejecting procedures, rewriting its bylaws to require physicians who perform them on minors to lose their clinical privileges and committing to banning them at its facilities. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are sitting at home and you're telling yourself, what can I do for God because I'm just one person, let Vanessa be your example. One lowly little Christian nurse down in Texas at Texas Children's Hospital uncovered and revealed a Medicaid fraud claim issue going on. And not only did she reveal it so that the world knows what's going on, $10 million have to be paid. 5 physicians are going to be fired. First detransitioner clinic in the country has to be opened by the end of October this year. A free treatment for patients up to 21 who are dealing with detransitioning issues or even transitioning issues that they're going through, whether it's psychiatric or physiological or physical damages that are going on with them. They're going to get the help that they need at this clinic. And healthcare professionals now have to be educated on the dangers of this stuff. She has completely turned the tide down in Texas with the LGBTQ, specifically with the trans issue here, the transitioning issue. So kudos to Vanessa. Chris and I here at American Christian Podcast love this story. This is a huge win. Congratulations on anything else that came out of this that you benefited from is not nearly as important. And I'm sure that Vanessa would agree is not as important as what is going to be provided for these kids, and that there's been justice dealt to the people responsible for this. So if you're looking for a form of biblical justice, this is it. Vanessa did not set out for vengeance. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. I will repay, is what God says. And so she did what was right, and she brought this to the light. And now the repayment is now in God's hands. And look at what God has done through the faith of Vanessa, as she really stepped out in faith. And she was fired for this. She was fired for revealing this. So through this lawsuit, she not only kind of helped repair her namesake, but she is now won a lot of help for people that are really going to need it.
Yeah, and I can't say enough about how we're starting to see a change in the culture, and we're starting to see some of these effects. I mean, we've talked time and time again about the long-term complications of these surgeries, specifically for children. I mean, really for anyone of any age, but specifically the long-term effects when it comes to, like it was talking about their reproductive abilities and the mental health that's going to come from that. Because if you eventually decide that you want to become a mother, right, but you can't become a mother, well, now you have to deal with the mental health that comes along with you not having the ability to have the child that you wanted to have, right? And so again, this shows that there is good that comes out of darkness. We've been talking about this with like the nurse that was at U of M, right? And there was a risk, right? And Vanessa lost, her job. But God took this bad event and he redeemed it. And he's starting the first detransitioning clinic in the entire United States. And I hope it is the first of many. I hope that there is going to be a realization, in America, that this stuff is hurting our children. And so we, like you said, we can't say enough good things about this scenario. And Vanessa, great job. We love the fact that you fought for this.
Yeah, if you want to see Romans 8:28 being lived out in real time, this is it. And we know that all things work together to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. It doesn't say that all things are good. It says that all things will work together for good. So her getting fired was not good. But look what good came from this, because of somebody who loved God and she was called for a purpose. So great job, Vanessa, on this. We love it. We are hoping that we can see more Christians stepping out in faith and getting these wins across the country. Just like we're going to see Christians stepping out in faith and marching in Dearborn on the 18th, this coming Tuesday, to protest against a religion that wants to see their death and their destruction and their torture and anything else that you want to throw into that pile. So Christians, keep it up, keep stepping out in faith, doing what you're doing. Chris and I are doing our small part. We're putting ourselves out there and trying to speak against these issues and encourage you guys into rethinking really where we're supposed to be at. How does my faith match with the American political and social culture? How should I be thinking about that? And so, as you can see here, Vanessa kind of lives that example. So yeah, this is a great win. I like leaving the show on a high note, Chris, with this. This is wonderful. So we're going to end it there. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Again, follow us, like us on Rumble at American Christian Podcast, on YouTube at American Christian Podcast, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And also follow Chris at Pastor Chris USA on YouTube for all his shorts and content that he puts there. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys next week.